and I fell to my knees. And I'll show you the evidence of the injuries on my body. When I fell to my knees, I said I couldn't breathe 5 times. Each time I said I couldn't breathe, my voice was less and less loud. Specifically, I can't breathe. I can't breathe. I can't breathe. I can't breathe. 5th time I said I couldn't breathe, Your Honor, he violently twisted my neck to the right. My body then went limp. But I was still awake, but my vision went blurry instantly. When my body went limp, he felt my body go limp. He then picked me up into the air from his side like this. When he picked me up, he picked me up from my left side. When he picked me up, the entire left side of my body grinded against his duty belt. And I'll show you, I still have scars on my body from that. Now, he then put me in handcuffs and took everything out of my pocket. And he put the handcuffs on me as tight as he could put them on me. And he put me in the back of the police car. As soon as he put me in the back of the police car, Sergeant Gomez leaves. And then the PRI officer, Officer Leslie, approaches him with another officer smoking cigars, big cigars. And they immediately approached him and asked him, they did just like this. He said, so why'd you beat him up? And I was watching them conversate from the inside of the back seat of the police vehicle. And Officer Leslie specifically was standing right next to the window of the vehicle. From what I seen was so I could hear him speaking to Officer Ronnie Rodriguez. When he asked him specifically, why did he beat me up? Officer Ronnie Rodriguez looked at him in awe, in shock, as if he can't believe, as if he couldn't believe that he was asking him that question. Now, Officer Leslie then, from what I seen, he cross-examined him. He then noticed immediately that he became fearful of the fact that he was asking him that question. So he then he started to befriend him, to become as if he was on his side. They sat there and made comments back and forth to the point where Officer Ronnie Rodriguez believed him, to the point that he believed that he was on his side, to the point that he stated, man, let's just take this kid somewhere and beat the shit out of him some more. He stated that, Your Honor. And I was sitting in the back seat of the vehicle scared for my life, thinking that they were going to end up killing me. Now, Officer Ronnie Rodriguez then came to the left side of the back seat of the car, opened the door while Officer Leslie was still on the right side of the window. Officer Ronnie Rodriguez opened the door and was leaning into the vehicle looking at me very aggressively, very angrily. He said, the next time a sergeant tells you to do something, you do it, or you're going to get your ass beat. I said, sir, with all due respect, that doesn't justify the fact that you just brutally assaulted me. When I said that, Officer Leslie said something to Officer Ronnie Rodriguez, and Officer Ronnie Rodriguez slammed the door in my face. Then he took me to the hospital. When he took me to the hospital, he was leaning over the back seat of the vehicle in front of the door for the psychiatric unit of Jackson Hospital, filling out some kind of report. Now, mind you, when he was filling out that report leaning over the back seat of the vehicle, I was watching him the entire time to make sure that he didn't destroy my phone that had the evidence that I recorded. While he was leaning over the back seat of the vehicle writing the report, there was about 4 or 5 seconds where he just dropped his head, and it looked like in a shame, or in feeling bad for what happened, for what he did. He then was, I guess, documenting my belongings, my property, and when he looked at my hat, I have a hat from the Will Smith movie Suicide Squad, and it has like a bullseye on it with several characters of the movie. And he commented. He said, "Oh, people are probably trying to kill you because you have a bullseye on your hat." He brings me inside the psychiatric unit, Your Honor, in handcuffs. He then takes the handcuffs off of me and he leaves. I immediately asked to speak with a doctor in regards to the injuries that I sustained and because of how much pain that I was in. The doctor comes out, very sarcastically looks at me and stands over me and says, "Oh, you have to wait," as if he was implying that I have an abundant amount of drugs, in a sense, in code word, so to speak. Which really bothers me because I don't sell drugs, and unfortunately I'm suffering from PTSD, anxiety, and depression, and the best medication to prescribe for someone suffering from what I'm suffering from is marijuana, something that they consider a drug. The doctor then stated that I have to wait. I very patiently waited. I sat down very quietly, holding my neck in an excruciating amount of pain. About an hour goes by, and I'm watching the doctors and the nurses, and they're not doing anything. They're just like, they weren't doing anything in the sense of, trying to help me. So I asked them again, and the doctor says the exact same thing. He says I have to wait. I then pick up the phone and call 911, Your Honor. And I explained to 911 that I was just brutally assaulted by Officer Ronnie Rodriguez for no reason whatsoever. And I explained to them that I am the son of a retired Broward Sheriff's employee. And I explained to them my father retired from the Broward Sheriff's Office after 30 years. And that my mother is a school teacher. And that I have a 10-year-old daughter. And that I have several injuries on my body from police brutality, an intentional aggravated assault committed by Officer Ronnie Rodriguez in the presence of Sergeant Gomez. They immediately asked me, where is my location? I explained to them, I then asked the nurse what the exact address was. The nurse then told me what the address was. I then explained to the 911 operator what the address was. She said, "Do not move from your position. We are sending rescue to you immediately." As soon as rescue walked into the door, I was still standing on the phone, holding the phone. As soon as they walked into the door, I immediately started walking towards their gurney to sit down on their gurney. As soon as I was about to sit down on the gurney, all the doctors and the nurses and the staff members came out of the rooms that they were in, and they just started to cause it was like a really deceitful, organized situation of just disarray, and said, "No, you guys can't. You guys have to leave. You guys have to leave right now. You can't help him." I was then in even more fear for my life. Now, as soon as the rescue left, I felt as if that was it. I'm never going to be able, they're never going to let me out of this hospital because of what they just did to me and the fact that I'm attempting to report them. The next thing they did, Your Honor, was they came out with a needle about this long, and they said they were going to inject me with something that was going to help me relax. I clearly said, I'm relaxed. I need to see a doctor in regards to my injuries because I'm in a lot of pain. They then said, "No, you have to relax. You have to relax." I said, I'm talking to you perfectly calm. I'm relaxed. I was actually talking to them more calm than I'm talking to you right now, Your Honor. Now, they then surrounded me with 10 people, forced me into a small room, told me to pull my pants down. I said, "Excuse me, what are you attempting to inject me with?" They wouldn't even tell me what it was that they were injecting me with. So I then asked them if what they're injecting me with, is it going to kill me? They said, "Oh, no, honey, no, don't worry." So, being that I was surrounded by 10 people, and the more they said that just turn around so we can inject you, the more aggressive they became. So I felt as if I had no choice, as if I was being sexually assaulted, Your Honor. And I don't like that, because when I was a little kid, I was sexually assaulted by my stepfather. Now, specifically, they injected me and I fell asleep within 30 seconds. And before they injected me, I said, "Okay, inject me in my rear end, but please don't close the door." They put me in like a little room, like a cell. And I said, "Could you please leave the door open?" They said, "Of course, we'll leave the door open for you." I was convinced they would leave the door open. I then let them inject me. As soon as they injected me, I turned around, standing in front of the bed. The person who injected me walked out, stood in front of the door, turned around, and then slammed the door in my face. I then woke up hours later, Your Honor, and they brought me upstairs, and they said that that's where I was going to be housed or evaluated. So I asked them, "How long am I going to be? How long do I have to stay here?" They said, "Until the doctor sees you." It's okay. I immediately noticed that the nurses and the staff members and some of the people who appeared to be patients in the hospital were working together to try to cover up the police brutality in several ways, Your Honor. First, they tried to stir up unnecessary arguments with me, just to make me seem like if I was a bad person, to obviously benefit the police or whatever defense the police would try to use. Now, which is very common in these types of cases, Your Honor. Now, I knew what they were doing. I mean, I come from Pompano Beach, Florida. You know, I'm familiar with having to, having to decipher, good people from bad people all the time. Especially when people are trying to conspire against you deceitfully and frame you, in a sense. Now, I knew what they were doing. It was obvious. And I then contacted 911 again because I was in that much more fear of my life. When I called 911, I explained to them that this is the second time I called 911. And the first time I called 911, they told the rescue team that they sent to help me to immediately leave the hospital. And I've been in the hospital now for 2 days against my will, suffering from several injuries on my body from the police brutality that Officer Ronnie Rodriguez committed. They said the same thing. We're sending, this time they said they're sending internal affairs to the hospital. When internal affairs came, they immediately took pictures of all the injuries on my body, documented everything.